Sons of the Forest was developed by Night Games and released into early access February 23, 2023. Sons of the Forest is a sequel to 2014's The Forest, which also started out as early access. Sons of the Forest was delayed twice before releasing and was originally planned to be a full release instead of early access. However, Night decided that they wanted to release the game into early access and continue to update and engage with players. Early access ended up being a good decision for the original, as over 5 million copies were sold just in its first 4 years of being released. This review will be broken down into several categories, with each category receiving a score of 1 through 10, with 10 being the highest. The categories will be audio, graphics, gameplay, replayability, and story. At the end, I will also have a final overall score of 1 through 10 and will let you know whether or not I think you should buy it. I have over 30 hours in the Forest and around 21 hours in Sons of the Forest at the time of writing this review. I played both games alone for a short amount of time and then beat both games with friends. I spent the majority of both games in multiplayer where I was the host. As far as audio goes, I would say this game is pretty good. It's about on par with its predecessor and nothing really stands out as poor quality to me. There were some audio glitches where I was hearing water that didn't seem to be actually anywhere, but that was mainly it. The in-game walkie-talkie sounds a lot worse in this game to me than it did in the original, but it's not something I see many players using anyway. The guns sound good and satisfying to repeatedly shoot at enemies, and the enemies themselves make some realistic and even scary sounds. I've seen a few enemies even beg and whine for mercy through sound and visuals, and it really sold to me the fact that they were scared. The enemies sound creepy and will scream and just sound squishy at times too. It really sells the fact that these are cannibals and mutants. The current two companions, Kelvin and Virginia, don't really make too much noise. I can't recall Kelvin making any noise throughout normal gameplay, and Virginia usually doesn't do too much either besides the when she gives a thumbs up. There are very few voice lines throughout the game, with the ending included. I hope they'll add more in that regard. I will say that this game is extremely loud and I had to turn down a lot of audio settings and play with my music off for my own sanity. Even with music off, the game does still have a few boom boxes around the map that still play music. The music actually sounded pretty cool, but it just wasn't something I wanted to hear all the time. Overall, I feel like a lot of the time and effort was put into the AI and environment audio and would give the audio a score of 7. As far as graphics go, this game is pretty. I originally thought The Forest was prettier, but I think it was just more impressive what the game was capable of considering when it was released and the fact that it's just an indie studio. Sons of the Forest is on par with it, with a few things looking better overall. I did have some visual glitches where I could see through the mountains, but there were a lot less visual bugs than in the original, and none of them were game breaking. There are a lot of customizable settings for the graphics, and I would recommend playing with them until you find something that works best for you. There are still some clipping issues, but I think a lot of things are patchable and will continue to improve throughout the game's development. I think the game looks very realistic, however it is very dark at times. I think that is the point of the game though, being that it's a survival horror game. Overall, I would give the graphics another 7 out of 10, and I think that number can definitely go up in time. The actual gameplay is the most important category to me. First of all, is the game fun? I would say that it is, at least with friends. Alone, I was definitely more frustrated while playing. The building mechanics are different and it can take a while to get used to. I first approached the game like I was trying to play the original, which led to more disappointment and frustration than needed. Once I realized it was a new game with new mechanics and features, I was able to enjoy it more. I would say that the building aspects of the game are going to be more fun for those that like fine details and really want to control exactly how their base is. For me, I like to just throw a prefab down and a wall around it and call it a day, which is harder to do in this game. In fact, we didn't end up building a wall at all because of how tedious it would have been. It's definitely doable, but it just wasn't something we wanted to invest our time into. Exploring caves in this game was about the same to me as it was in the last game. I wouldn't say it was necessarily improved on or worse than the original, at least at this time. I know they have plans to expand caves in the future. There is a new 3D printing mechanic that is fun at first and then it's kind of just there. I assume that they'll expand more on this later too. There is a pistol, shotgun, taser, and stun baton in this game, just to name a few new weapons. All of these play pretty well and are fun to use. Ammo isn't very scarce on normal difficulty, so we actually could have used guns a lot more than we did and probably would have had a little more fun with it. The melee weapons in this game seem to hit a little less hard and weren't as enjoyable to use, but it's what we opted to use most of the time. I think the game wants you to use ranged weapons more than melee in this game though. Crafting is about the same as it was in the original, except your inventory is a lot bigger now from the start. You have to move your mouse all the way around to see everything in your inventory. Hotkeys were not part of the initial release, but were added as a patch within a few days. The AI was very fun to watch and fight. Some enemies would just watch and stalk you before engaging, and some immediately wanted all the smoke. The mutants were creepy, but seemed to be less abundant and a little less scary than the original, at least at this time. There will be a few spoilers from this point on, so fast forward to the end to see my overall score, or come back to this video whenever you finish the game for yourself. As far as I'm aware, there is not really a final boss for this game in its current state. There's a cutscene where you see a huge mutant get killed, but you don't contribute to the fight at all. On the way to the very final cutscene of the game, you fight a few demon-like creatures, but they're not very strong at all. In fact, I would say the bigger cannibals and tribe members are stronger. I would compare that section of the game to the game House of Ashes for the way it feels creature-wise. The game is overall fun to play and explore, but I would say that it's best with friends. It's definitely unfinished, but as of right now, I would give the gameplay a 6. I think it has the potential to be at least an 8 with some updates. Replayability is important in a game like this. I want to keep playing even after I beat the game the first time, whether that's on the same save file or a new one. There are so many hidden achievements for this game that I want to continue playing for that reason alone, to be able to unlock them all and find the secrets. It can be a bit annoying to restart and set up a new camp again, get all the weapons and gear, etc., but I don't think any part of it is too boring or too hard to not want to do it again at all. The endings aren't very gratifying to experience, so I would not consider those alone worth replaying. The main replayability to me is continuing to explore and fight cannibals with friends, or achievement hunting, or speedruns. Overall, I would say the replayability is another 6 out of 10. Finally, the story. At this point, there really isn't much of one. There are emails around the map that serve as clues for what's happening with the story. There's hardly any dialogue in the game, and again, there is not a final boss. I would say that there are 2 different parts of the ending of this game. The first part has at least 3 different endings, and there will be some spoilers ahead. The first is with you alone, the second is with you and Kelvin, the last is with you, Kelvin, and Virginia. I would also assume that there is a possible ending with just Virginia, but it's not one that I saw myself. I played with 2 friends, and we each saw a different ending. All of us had a tracker on Virginia, and Kelvin was alive for all of us. However, I was the only one with achievement for having the max level with Virginia, and I was the only one that saw her in my ending. Kelvin and Virginia were both alive for all of us, but one of my friends didn't have any companions in his ending. After that part of the ending, there is another part where you can choose to stay on the island or you can leave in a helicopter. It was not obvious that there was a choice in that moment, as the game loaded us all one by one, and the trigger for it seemed to be that we immediately picked up our gear instead of walking right to the helicopter. Honestly, I didn't really understand the story, so if you want a full breakdown of what exactly happened, I would recommend watching a breakdown of that from another channel. However, I think most casual players will have a similar experience to the one my friends and I had. I really hope they add a lot more to the story, because I can only give it a 4 as of right now. There just really isn't anything of substance there right now. With everything said, I do actually really enjoy playing this game. There's a lot to explore even though it's early access, and I'm sure they're only going to add more and more. At its current price of $29.99 USD, I would recommend this game firstly to fans of the original game. I think the cost is a little bit high considering that it's early access, but the developers have said previously that they do not intend on raising the price. For everyone else, I would say to watch a few videos on it and see if it looks like something you would enjoy. If it was closer to $19.99, I think it would be an instant buy for most people for what it currently is. I think $29.99 will be a fair price for the final product product. With all things considered, I would give Sons of the Forest a solid 6 out of 10. There is so much room for improvement that I could see this overall score going up to at least an 8 by the time of its full release. I would love to make another review video of this game once it's out of early access and see what all has changed. This is my first review on this channel and also probably one of my longest narrated ones at this point. If you have any feedback or want to let me know your own review of the game, make sure to leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Sons of the Forest content. Thanks for watching.